Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Why Shipping Container Management is the Right Solution for You. On the call, we will cover what PC Bennett's proprietary solution, Shipping Container Management, is, how it streamlines your shipping operation, and also how it creates clarity when it comes to how your containers with goods are impacting your financials. I'm Strati Moustakis, PC Bennett's Content Marketing Specialist, and I'm joined by Nathan Newberg, our Technical Sales Engineer. Nathan is a pro when it comes to demonstrating all of our offerings at PC Bennett, but especially shipping container management. He has years of experience in Acumatica, leveraging the system as an end user at his previous job, but also diving into the depths of the platform as our technical sales engineer to provide you all, our valuable clients, with relevant information in the demos he provides. Let's start the call with some quick background information on shipping container management. It is an Acumatica enhancement for businesses looking to streamline and automate the way they import containers from overseas or use trailers to move inventory from one warehouse to another. We built this solution to essentially let technology do the cumbersome task of managing your containers for you, because this can be a challenging process and your team should be more focused on revolutionizing your business rather than doing manual data entry and calculations. Our focus has been on helping you identify the value of the inventory you have and the cost of moving it, as well as the implications that dealing with containers has on your business, namely landed costs with shipping large quantities of items. Because we understand that these transactions are critical to ensuring your financials are accurate and representative of your true costs. Shipping container management, if we are to boil it down to the simplest of terms, tracks the financials associated with your containers or trailers, as well as automates the creation of certain transactions in your Acumatica ecosystem based on what part of a PO or multiple POs are included in the container. This can turn into an incredibly vital part of your organization because it enables you to keep that single source of truth in Acumatica, rather than your team needing to use disconnected systems and making sure that data is entered accurately in multiple applications by hand. I say this because many of the clients who have brought on shipping container management were previously using Excel to manage the financials of their container or trailer orders, but that just really isn't the most effective or efficient way to handle these types of large transactions and inventory counts nowadays, especially if you have Acumatica. I think this is especially apparent to the smaller and mid-sized businesses that understand how crucial it is to ensure that they're being as cost sensitive as possible. I mean, sure, using Excel to track all of this information can be a really cheap solution. However, when you really think about it, the potential for miscalculations, the man hours it takes to input data, the misplacement of order information, and more can severely harm a business if it's not done perfectly. And that's why we built this Acumatica enhancement, to let the technology work for you and not the other way around. And that's why we're here today. Nathan's going to demonstrate that there is a better, easier way to manage the financials associated with your container or trailer orders. PC Bennett's shipping container management solution ensures that you have the most streamlined experience possible when it comes to this formerly burdensome process. So with that little intro, we're going to jump directly into the demonstration. We're going to start with Nathan providing a detailed look at how the system works, touching on specific items like how to tie specific purchase orders to a given container, the importance of an in-transit warehouse, and how to associate landed cost to specific orders. Then we're going to open it up to the audience for any additional questions. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat feature or the Q&A feature, and we'll try to either answer those on the fly as they come in or towards the tail end of the call today if it's a little more challenging of a question to answer. So that's going to be it for my little spiel for now. And so Nathan, I'm going to pass the reins over to you and stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thank you, Strati. Thank you for that awesome introduction and the warm welcome. I very much appreciate it. Going to keep us warm as we travel across the ocean today, carrying containers. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. If you can just give me a thumbs up when you see it. And we can jump right in. All right. Thank you. Okay. So how can we make light work of managing a container? Now, you can track a container, sure, but what do you do with it once you know where it is or, have it on the way? There's a lot of transactions involved in Acumatica, and managing a container can involve many of those. So we're going to show you how to make that much easier on your life by automating some of those processes and streamlining a lot of that busy work. You'll see here I'm logging into Acumatica. I'm administrator today, so keep in mind you may see some things that don't necessarily apply to your business. We've got everything turned on, so you can see a lot. But what we want to point out is that Acumatica, or Shipping Container Management by PC Bennett, runs natively in Acumatica's framework, meaning that it's written right within the code as a customization package, as many ISV solutions are. Being that it lives between the code and your interface, it makes it very easy for upgrades to proceed smoothly. Testing happens behind the scenes ahead of any updates, so we always keep current. And everything is licensed by PCB, so it's really easy to get this up and running. We'll help you get it set up and do all the implementation for you to make sure it works smoothly the first time. If we take a look at our dashboard here, you can note that I've got a couple of KPIs here at the top, just to note that we can report on this data. Once we have the shipping container orders created in the system, we have valuables on those orders. We can track where those items are at any one time with Acumatica's great out-of-the-box reporting tools. Okay, so how does it work, right? Like I said, it installs as a customization. There's actually two little customization packages. We'll help you get that set up. And once you've got it there, you're ready to start managing some container orders. The way I like to do this is to just jump right in and start making that order. We can take a look at the order screen and get a lot of information there about it. You'll note that PCB's added a container orders menu item to your purchases workspace here, and that's how we can get to our list of container orders, ones that we've seen go through the system in the past. We can see across the top quickly any that are in any particular status, maybe those that have been recently received, any that we're considering current, that we can use these tabs also for reporting. I'm going to go ahead and jump in and create a new order so we can talk about how this works, right? Acumatica uses numbering sequences for auto numbering, and we can take a look at how the container order numbering sequence is set up. We can see we've got it set for automatic and not manual numbering here. We've got a range of numbers just like any other transactions in Acumatica. That said, you could manually number these orders if you wanted to keep track of that in some other way. A couple of other things on the screen here that are going to make a difference to managing this container. First of all, we can use a master order number, and I'm not going to get too deep into master orders today, but if you have a lot of containers that you're moving and you need to maintain a batch of those containers, master order numbers make it really easy to do that. You can make changes to all of the child containers under a master order all at once. So for those of you that are moving a lot of goods, master orders can make that job a lot easier. Priority, right? We can give a container a priority. A lot of these custom fields are set up in Acumatica using attributes. PC Bennett installs a couple of these so that you can maintain them on your own, right? If you have changes you want to make to the list of priorities available, you can do that just by adding records to this combo list here. We can adjust the order date if need be. Maybe this is an order coming in the future, or sometime we're catching up, one that has already shipped. And then the next thing is a container ID. What's a container ID? Well, if we're going to be moving product in containers, right, we need to know when it's full and how it's moving. If I take a look at the container orders or the container transfer containers list, you can see here that we are able now to set up an entity, a profile in Acumatica for what's called a transfer container. Now, this can be a container that moves across by ship, by train, by truck, or some combination of those. We can define these, including their maximum payload capacities in weight and volume, so that we can know roughly when the container is full. It's a simple calculation, but it might help you to get some statistics on the container and how much more you could fit in there. Okay, we'll also need an in-transit warehouse. Now, this is something that really makes the product special. Shipping container management utilizes Acumatica's multiple warehouses functionality. And if we take a look at the warehouses screen here, we can see not only can we have multiple warehouses, we can now designate one of them to use for in-transit containers. Now, any inventory in this warehouse is going to be considered as inventory on the books, but separate from our inventory in-house. Maybe we want to make that available for some sales orders as we're taking orders against that inventory that's inbound, or maybe we want to make it unavailable. Maybe we don't want that inventory to be sold until it gets here. We can do that with Acumatica's multiple warehouses. Okay, we'll also need to designate a shipping line. If we take a look at our vendors screen, we can see here Acumatica has, or sorry, PC Bennett has added a field called vendor as a shipping line. If I open up one of the vendors here, we can see how we can designate one of our vendors as a shipping line. Now, this is going to make that vendor available to us in the list of shipping vendors on the container orders screen. It's also going to allow us to add some vessel information to the vendor. We use Acumatica's multiple location feature to designate a location at the vendor level as a shipping vessel. This can be helpful if you're moving multiple ships or multiple containers across the water on different ships using the same shipping vendor. So once we designate the location as a shipping vessel, then that will be available to tag our container orders with also. One last thing, as far as setup, if we take a look at the purchase orders preferences, we can see we've got a couple of other configuration options we've added down here, like whether or not we want to require a vendor reference number. Are we creating bills at the same time we're creating receipts? If so, then we'll need a vendor reference number. Do we want to allow the override of transfer orders on receiving, or do we want to automatically release shortages and overages? We'll talk more about that later. A couple of other things that might make an effect on how your container management works is whether or not we're automatically releasing bills or landed costs as we're processing these containers. So something to note there. PC Bennett's team will help you going through the configuration to set this up the right way for your business. Okay, a couple of those other attributes we've added. We can designate different shipping methods, FOB, for example, and we'll see this in a little bit. And also reason codes if we need to designate some reason for this container taking a different course. Okay, back to the container order. Let's go ahead and add in some details here. We've got a dry 20-foot. We're going to be sending it over on Costco. We can designate down here in the container tracking the vessel names. Maybe we'll send this one on the Universe, we've been told. And one last thing to input before we can save our order, the last required field is an embarkment ID. Now, embarkment ID is another profile that PC Bennett has added to the system, allow us to quickly filter open POs. So we can even designate a purchase order as coming from a specific embarkment ID, and then we can filter that list on those embarkments only. So if I select one here, you can see we can designate that as either embarkment, disembarkment, or for use in both of those lists. Okay, so we'll input this one as Shanghai. Okay, now we've got just about everything we need to save the order. Last thing I want to point out before we start adding our purchase orders to this container is that we can actually use containers for moving our own inventory as well. If we're not buying this inventory, it's not inbound inventory, but it's inventory we already own, maybe in another warehouse. We can move that inventory using the container module and designate it as originating from a warehouse of ours and not our vendor. Today, we're going to be demonstrating the purchase order method as that's the most common. Okay, looks like I've got everything I need now to get an order number. If I click the Save button, there we go. We've got our next sequential order assigned. Okay, what that did is open up these buttons down here for adding either lines of a purchase order, individual lines, or entire POs at once. So let's go ahead and make a couple of POs that we can throw onto this container. Maybe we want to give it a couple of other notes before we move forward with this. We can give it a voyage description. We can designate that method code. Maybe it's coming to us FOB via ocean. We could include some tracking numbers here if we had them, or maybe master bill of lading numbers. and maybe a house bill of lading. Great. Okay, we've got some details there. Our vendors are getting ready to prepare this container for us. We know what's going on it, but maybe we don't have those purchase orders in the system yet. Let's go ahead and create some. I'm stepping through this manually for demonstration purpose. Of course, you could have purchase orders existing in the system ahead of time and just add those as we go. So I'm going to select a vendor here. We're going to call this 1 of 2. Let's add in some items. We can check off. Maybe we're bringing in some computers for the holidays. We need a lot of those. We're also going to bring in some of our popular Lego sets to make sure we have enough for the holiday season coming. Okay, we'll go ahead and save that order. You'll notice that the order is on hold. We won't be able to add the order to the container module until it's been removed from hold and enters the open status. So anything that is going to trigger your out-of-the-box Acumatica approval workflows is supported, right? So we've got a large container or a large purchase order here that requires approval. Today I'm the administrator, so I'm going to go ahead and approve my own order. There we go. We've got an open order. Let's add one more. Just so that we have some variety to add to our container. Maybe a second vendor over there is going to be sending us some goods. So here, let's go ahead and maybe we're looking for some air hockey tables from these guys. We'll bring in 500 of those. This is going to be order number 2 of 2. I'll save that. Last thing I wanted to point out before we move on is that we can designate here an embarkment ID. So I'm going to say that this one is coming from Shanghai, and we'll save that. We can see how that looks going forward. We'll do the same for our recently entered order. You can see that this order went to open status. Let's put it back on hold so we can add that detail. Okay, save. Remove the hold. You need to pass the approval one more time. And there we go. We've got one open purchase order. We'll move forward to the next one, 2 of 2. We will remove the hold and approve that. Okay, great. Now we've got 2 open purchase orders ready coming from Shanghai. So let's go back to our container order. And now we can start adding either purchase orders or purchase order lines. If I click the add PO button here, it's going to bring up all of my open normal POs in the system, right? These are normal. If I had others, I could filter by dropship or project dropship as well. I can see here I've got the descriptions that I entered to easily designate them, but maybe I've got hundreds of purchase orders and I really want to narrow this list down. I can certainly do that by checking off this box here that says include only purchase orders from this embarkment ID. So I click the add PO button again, and there we go. We've got only the 2 that are coming from Shanghai today. I'll check off both of them. When I click add and close, that's going to go ahead and add all of the lines of all of the purchase orders for me. Now, you can imagine how cumbersome this could be. You've got hundreds of purchase orders, or maybe purchase orders with hundreds of lines on them. Well, we can do that really easily just by bringing all of that in. Maybe you want to mix and match. Maybe you've got only part of a purchase order fits in this container, then you've got the rest of the purchase order fits in another container. You can do that with shipping container management. You can add individual lines of a purchase order, right? If we were to select here, our most recent purchase order, for example, let's actually go back one. We can see one with 2 lines on it. So I could add an individual line as well, or even a partial quantity of that line to be shipped. I'll show you how that works too. So we've got our inventory assigned to the container, but it's not yet shipped, right? So let's go ahead and try and save the order. Well, it's not going to let us because the system needs to know how much inventory is actually going into the container. Like we said, we can mix and match, maybe parts of lines or parts of purchase orders. So we need to know exactly how much inventory is going into this particular container so we can create that receipt and the value of that inventory gets recorded. So I'll click out of the error. You'll see that we use Acumatica's naming conventions or error conventions for reporting those errors, draws your attention quickly to the fields that need attention. So we've got right here a clear indication that the quantity shipped may not be 0 or empty. So how can we do that? We need to designate how much inventory is going in, right? Maybe we've got 1,000, 5,000, and 500. We're expecting the vendor to ship everything. Whether or not it gets here, we'll find out. But let's go ahead and ship all of those lines. We can either ship one line at a time, and that'll bring over the value from the order quantity to the quantity shipped. Or I can click the ship all button, and that's going to do everything on the order for me. Maybe I know that the vendor is going to be short shipping me this one. I can make an adjustment here and just, oops, that's way short. I can make an adjustment here and then just address those exceptions. Let's go ahead and save that again. Okay, now we get the opportunity to move to the next stage. Okay, so you'll note that the order is still on hold. The next step in receiving this container is actually to remove the hold and then release the container. What that does, we'll do that at the time that the shipping carrier notifies us that the vessel is leaving, right? Once the inventory is on the water, typically the inventory becomes ours. We own the inventory. If something happens to that inventory, it's our money that sank. So we need to know that that inventory is on the books. And that's where shipping container management really shines. We're able to do all of that in an automated way. So you don't have to do this manually. In order to receive the inventory, you've got to create a purchase receipt. Now, doing that for many purchase orders, multiple vendors, maybe even mixed and matched lines of purchase orders, you can imagine how difficult that could be. Well, Container Manager makes it very easy for you. Once I remove the hold from the order and I click the release button, you'll notice that in the column that says POTR receipt number, these are our transfer receipts or purchase order receipts, indicated as connected to these line items. We're starting to generate some purchase receipts. You'll note that it did multiples, right? We've got 2 purchase receipts, 1 per vendor. And on those receipts, we have the value of that inventory moving into our in-transit warehouse. Now that inventory is ours. So the next step is maybe some time has gone by. Maybe at this point, we want to start adding some landed costs. We know that moving this inventory is going to cost us some money in addition to the purchase, right? Maybe we're coming through customs and there's a duty. We can add that to the order here. I can see quickly here how much value I have on my POs in terms of dollars and quantities. So I can get an idea about how much the customs might be. I can see here, maybe we want to add some other costs. We've got some overland transit expected when the inventory reaches the dock. We're going to have to move it from there to our location. And then maybe we've got some other miscellaneous destination charges. And you know, maybe some of these charges don't necessarily apply to all of our items. For example, Ocean Air might be charging us for items that are only coming from a particular vendor, or maybe even just a particular inventory item on this container. So we can apply landed costs selectively and a little bit more granularly than just across the board. So there's an extra $100 on just that item from that vendor. Okay, so now in the interest of time, and because it's a demo, I can pretend that we can fast forward time. You know, at this time, the container's moving across the water. What I want to note to you is that the inventory does actually exist on our books. So if we take a look at that purchase receipt, we can see that we've received both items. It's gone into our in-transit warehouse. If I take a look over at the other tab and drill into the inventory subledger reference batch, we can see that we've moved that inventory into in-transit, and there is a journal batch associated with the value of that inventory moving into goods in transit and crediting our inventory purchase accrual account. We can take a look at our balance sheet now and actually see that inventory on the books. If I take a look at my inventory's value, I can see quickly here down at the bottom, I have some inventory in transit. All right. So as the container is moving, maybe we're getting updates from our vendor or our shipper. Some things need to change. This is where Acumatica or PC Bennett has made that job a little bit easier by adding a mass processing screen as well. Maybe we need to change some dates on those orders, or maybe we need to release orders in bulk. Maybe we've got a couple that need to be canceled. Maybe we've been notified that they've been held at the port. Well, any of these actions can be applied to multiple containers at once in our mass processing screen. We can preserve our filters here and even schedule this just like we would in other Acumatica mass processing screens. So leverage the power of automation there to help make your job easier. Okay, so back to the container order. Fast forward time a little bit, and now we've been notified that the container has arrived at the dock. We are ready to begin disembarking. We can see here, oh, sorry, I skipped over a couple of things. Maybe we want to let our employees know when the container is expected to ship. We can also indicate when we're expecting to receive that, and maybe a couple of more days before that's going to actually get to our destination. So it's going to arrive at customs on this date. We expect it a couple of days later at our warehouse on that date. We can also indicate here the actual ship date of the inventory. So vendor told us it's going to ship on 9/29, but it didn't actually ship until 10/2. These statistics are great for vendor performance reporting later on. Go ahead and save that additional information. Take a look over at the container payload tab too. You can see here that we've got statistics for our max capacity in this dry 20-foot container, how much we've got loaded, and how much we're expecting available left over in terms of weight and volume. When we reach those capacities, we'll be able to see some negative numbers here and know that we're overloaded. Helps us maintain, fill up the container as much as possible without leaving too much empty space. We don't want to be shipping air, right? So now that the container is landed, we're ready to begin receiving. Okay, so give me 1 second here. Get connected to show you how this can be done utilizing Acumatica's mobile app as well. Okay, we've got our shipping container management tenant ready to log into the Acumatica mobile app. And go ahead and get that connected so we can use this for processing as well. When I log into the mobile app, you can see here I've got some KPIs at the top, just like I had on my dashboard. I've even made the container order screen in the mobile app one of my favorites, so I can get to it very quickly. When I click on that, it brings up my list of container orders and I can start processing those. So we're ready to begin receiving. We've been notified that the product has reached our loading dock. We're going out to the warehouse, to the loading dock to receive that. Once I've initiated the begin receiving process action, and we've moved the status to in receiving, I can now take a look at my more actions list and even print out the container receiving documents. So we can go out there, if we're doing this manually with a pencil, we can walk out there and input the confirmed quantity and where it's going for that process. Maybe we want to modernize a little more than that and actually utilize our mobile app to do it. We can do that using barcode scanning as well. So we're taking a look at the order details here. In the actions list, I have a quick button to receive all. Maybe everything matches the packing list and the POs line up, our three-way match. We don't have the bill yet, but our two-way match exists. So we can see that we could just quickly receive all of those. If we have some discrepancy though, we can note that here too. So I can see the document details. Let's take a look at our computers. We ordered 1,000. 1,000 were shipped, but maybe we only received 900 of those. What happens? Well, what do we want to do with the other 100? We've already received it. It's on our inventory. We need to relieve that inventory, but we've already received it. So we can either write off the items as if we're not expecting any credit back, or we can have the system automatically generate a return receipt for us. If we have our receipts automatically releasing, that's also going to create a debit adjustment to send to our vendors to request that credit. Again, all of the document processing in the background is automated for you. You don't have to do these things manually once you've set these. So I'm going to go ahead and update that line. Let's pull up our Lego sets. They said they shipped 4,000, right? But maybe we actually received 4,100. Now, what do we do with the overage? We have more than we expected. We received 4,000 into in transit, but we're moving more than that into our wholesale warehouse. We need to generate a second receipt, either a straight inventory receipt, if that's just free, or if we want to enter a bill for it, we can generate a second purchase receipt, which is going to add that payable to our AP. Okay, and let's see, we've got just as many hockey tables as we ordered. We can use the receive line button very quickly to copy the quantity shipped down to the received. Go ahead and update that. We've got our quantities recorded. We've got our difference actions recorded. So we should be able to go ahead and save the order. All right, there we go. Now heading back to our web interface, the completion of the receiving has been done on the mobile. We should see that information updated here in the web interface too. If I click refresh on the screen, and then we take a look down at the quantity received, we see that we got 900 of the 1,000 that were shipped. We received a little more than we expected, and just as many hockey tables as we ordered. So you can see that we've generated the return receipt and purchase receipts for those overages, and I'll be able to show you how all of that looks on the back end of things. Okay, so last step is to complete the receiving. When this is done, that's going to move the inventory into our wholesale warehouse. It's going to generate a transfer order for us. Now, Acumatica facilitates transfers in two ways. We're using the transfer order feature, so we have some traceability. If we need to print out any documentation associated with those transfer orders, we have that available to us. As soon as I click complete receiving, you'll note that the system is going to now generate for us that transfer order number. It's going to ship that transfer order, and then it's going to receive the transfer order into our wholesale warehouse, moving it from our virtual in-transit warehouse to the destination warehouse wholesale. Now, it takes a minute because the system is actually doing some processing behind the scenes. It's generating multiple transactions. It's posting those transactions for us, and all with a couple of clicks. It's really, really very streamlined. All right. One last thing I want to point out is that our landed costs at this point are also being processed with that final transfer. So as we receive the inventory into wholesale, those landed costs are being applied according to their landed cost codes and the methods associated with those. If we take a look at landed cost codes, we can see how they're set up. This is standard Acumatica functionality that we're taking advantage of and utilizing in the container management and automating a lot of this for you. You can see that the transport is a freight and miscellaneous origin charges. It's designed to allocate by weight according to the product. We've got a couple others in here. Customs, for example, is going to distribute by cost. You've got a couple of other ways to do this. If it's not an automated way and you want to apply these manually, you can choose none and then do that the way you want. Let's take a look at one of those landed cost references. So this is the landed cost transaction for customs. We can see on the details here that the customs has been applied according to its method by cost. And the amount of the total charge has been applied in ratio to the cost of the value of the material on the container. Taking a look at the financial tab, we can see here that this goes to our US Customs vendor. Now, that's great, but what happens if there was a mistake? Or maybe we've got a need to add a temporary cost to this inventory. We know that there's going to be a landed cost. We don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. So we're going to go ahead and add that for now. And then when the inventory finally arrives, we're going to correct it. But that can be hard to do too. How do you do that in Acumatica once the landed cost has already been released? Well, if we take a look at our miscellaneous charge here, maybe this one we were expecting, but now is not going to be. Let's open up that landed cost and take a look at what we've got here. A very easy way to reverse the application of that landed cost across these details. You can see it was applied only to the one item we specified, but now we need to take it off. If I click the reverse landed cost button, oops. Oh, I chose the wrong one. let's go ahead and try this one, the freight cost. We got a little bit of a higher bill from that freight broker, so we're going to actually reverse this one and adjust it. Now look at that, very easily, we've got a link back to our original landed cost reference. We can take a look at the details. I've applied the negative amounts to reverse those values. And if we link back to the original landed cost, we can see a reference to the reversal in it as well. So great traceability all the way through the process. Let's jump back to our container order and see what happened there. This is the one we just created. It's in received status. The landed cost code, the one that we had reversed, you can see now is no longer applied to the container. I can either take this one off or I can make an adjustment to it if I have an updated value. Maybe it's 300 instead of 250. Now I need to actually reprocess that cost because it's been reversed. I can use the process landed costs button here to do just that. Okay, now we can see that that $300 should have been applied in its distributed way by weight to the inventory that we've received. All right, so a lot of work there done for us without any intervention, right? We've got all of our landed cost documents generated. We've got all of our purchase receipts generated. We've got a transfer order and a transfer receipt. Let's take a look at how those look. If we take a look at the individual screens, we can see on the landed cost transaction screen, okay, here we've got that original 250. We've got the reversal of the 250, the new application of the 300, and the other landed costs that are associated with the orders we took on today's date. We've also got some purchase receipts that were generated for us, right? So let's take a look at how that looks. If we look at just today's orders again, we've got down here the purchase receipt for our original container order number 11, the second receipt from the second vendor on that container. Now, we didn't receive quite as many as we had ordered, so we're going to have to return some of those for the shortage. We can see here we've generated a return receipt. Now let's drill in there and take a look. If I take a look at the billing tab, oh, no, I don't have the create bill done automatically for us today, but if I were to enter a bill here, now that return receipt would generate a debit adjustment for us. Again, if you want to have these automatically generated, that's one of the preferences that we can enable. Now we're ready to request that credit from our vendor. Okay. If we take a look at the sales orders screen, we can see here a record of that transfer order that was generated for us. Transfer from container to destination warehouse. And here's another one from earlier today and a couple from earlier in the week. We've got transfers generated for us. Each one of these transfers has a shipment associated with it. If we take a look at the shipment screen, we can see here those most recent shipments with a handy description to make them very easy to call out. Transfers. And then we've got purchase receipts again. So once those transfers are generated, they're moving into our wholesale warehouse. We've got the transfer receipt here generated on the other side. All of this transacting has been done again for us automatically without any human intervention and no need for keystrokes, saving you a lot of time there. Okay, so now that that container has arrived, everything was in semi-good condition. We got a little extra, but now we're ready to go ahead and close it. We've got all of our landed costs in. Now this could be weeks later, right? Maybe we keep the container open in a received status for some time until we get all our landed costs in. We can even add other landed costs at this time, right? Maybe there's another miscellaneous charge from a different vendor. Transit vendor is sending us a follow-up bill, so we can add another cost there. Now, maybe some of this inventory is even sold. Now, what do? We've got to apply the landed cost across the inventory as it is. So anything that is still in inventory, that portion of the landed cost will be applied to inventory. Anything that has been sold, the portion of the landed cost would go to COGS. So we're able to do that even after the sale of the goods. So if I hit the process landed costs button, you see we can even continue processing after the fact. Okay. Now, if everything is good and everything's been received, we're ready to close out this order. We can move it to its final status by clicking the close button here. And that completes our container adventure for today. Thank you for joining me on this wondrous journey. And I'm going to hand it back to Strati to see if any questions came in while we were doing the demonstration.
Yeah, that was a great demonstration, Nathan. I did not know that you were also a time traveler as well as a demo expert. So that was pretty neat seeing how you were able to show us the entire process in one quick demo. So thank you very much for that. We
I
did get
wish
a
I could
couple.
do that when I wasn't sitting at my desk. Yeah.
So we did get a couple questions that did roll in. So I'm just going to read those off to you. So with the reverse landed cost function that you showed, is that built into Acumatica or is that just shipping container management? And then how can that be applied if it is in all of Acumatica? How is that really like applicable to a business?
Great question. And if you'll remember, when we looked at the landed cost screen, now this is a standard Acumatica screen. We've added the reverse landed cost feature to the landed cost feature in Acumatica. Regardless of whether you're using containers or not, you can still make use of this feature. So if that's something that's interesting to you, or this is something you're doing often or have a need for, it's a great solution. And whether or not you're moving containers or you're just processing landed costs on purchase orders, we can now reverse them site-wide.
Yeah, that's a really strong functionality. So thank you for showing that. So the second one was, is using an in-transit warehouse required? And if it is, why would that be?
Some warehouse is required. We do recommend using a tertiary warehouse, one that you're not keeping your primary inventory in, so that you can maintain some control over whether that inventory gets marked as available for sale or not. And then you can manage the value of that inventory separately as well from your inventory in-house. So yes, the in-transit functionality is core to the product. We'll help you do the setup there, but we typically recommend an in-transit warehouse separate from your regular inventory warehouse.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially thinking about like reducing overselling. You know, you have the inventory on hand, but it's not really on hand because it's on a ship.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, and then it looks like there's just one more, and then we can wrap up for the day. So, for shipping errors, how does the return function work, and does it actually start the return form itself?
Yeah. So when it comes to, like we saw, if we had an overage or an underage, right? The system is actually going to generate the return receipt for you or write off the items. Now, this is, again, standard Acumatica functionality. We're just automating the process by doing the transacting behind the scenes.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm just gonna share my screen really quick, if you don't
Yeah.
mind giving me control.
Thanks, Johnny. Absolutely. All yours.
Yeah. Awesome, sweet. One moment, share. Cool. So I just want to wrap up today's call by saying thanks everyone for attending and submitting those questions. They're really thoughtful, and I think added a good amount of context to what shipping container can do for businesses. So I definitely appreciate everyone sending those in. I hope you're leaving today's call with some great takeaways on how to enhance your shipping operation with our shipping container management solution. If you have any questions, really don't hesitate to reach out to us, whether that's to your customer success manager, who is Ben Kress. You can see his email on the screen right now, benk@pcbennett.com, or our sales and marketing team, which is at hello@pcbennett.com. Nathan, once again, just want to give you a huge thank you. You did a great job on today's demonstration, so really appreciate that. And I hope everyone else has a wonderful rest of their day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.